Good day everyone. Well, today I'll be showing you and giving you a little bit hints and tips on how to do these vanilla bosses we have in Warframe. We've got Captain V, we've got the ones on Venus like Jackal, Earth, and there are some things where I could show you to facilitate to defeating these bosses, as for example taking an Excalibur using Blinding Light as abilities, as weapons. But without further ado, I will be going in a lot more into detail on how to do all of this. As for Captain V, what our best option is using Excalibur with his Blinding Light, which is his second ability, how we can inflict more damage upon him either using melee or your primary weapon. As for Jackal, there is really nothing you can do to him. What you have to do is inflict the damage onto his legs, and then you have to show his head. You have to down him first. As for Alab V head, what we could use, or how I like to call it, it's called potato face. So here it's basic. You can use your Rhino if you grind out Venus. This boss you can only do now. This boss requirements you have to be on mastery level 5 to do this one. What I recommend is a Breton. You have your Rhino because he can get very annoying. And you've got also his allies coming to help him on top of that, so a Rhino would be best for this boss.
Bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
As to once you get onto Mars, your best probability is going for the Angstrom, which is a secondary weapon that you get on mastery rank 4. And due to Lich having these big pipes on his back, and the only way to really be able to damage him and get onto the next phase is cutting those pipes off of his backpack that go into his helmet. You can destroy those, much preferably using explosive weapon, as the Angstrom, it's missiles basically what you're shooting at it, which could be and is very well one of the best solutions when you're starting off with, for this particular boss.
Stay still, don't stop that thrill. My bones crave your skin, temptation within, mistakes ignite the silence. Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting.
As for the Sergeant, what I recommend is using Volt. Volt, what happens is he charges up, his passive charges up damage. As to once you get onto Mars, your best probability is going for the Angstrom, which is a secondary weapon that you get on Mastery rank 4. And due to Lich having these big pipes on his back, and the only way to really be able to damage him and get onto the next phase is cutting those pipes off of his backpack that go into his helmet. You destroy those, much preferably using explosive weapon, as the Angstrom, it's missiles basically what he's shooting at it, which could be and is very well one of the best solutions when you're starting off with, for this particular boss. Once we get into series, what will happen is we'll be fighting Captain Vor and Lieutenant Lashgrill together. So keep using the Angstrom for that boss, and really for as the point that you are on series, your damage should be sufficient enough that you wouldn't need to blind Captain Vor anymore, but it can still be useful.
Set my heart
Alab V is pretty simple. What you have to do here is, once you're down Alab V, the Zanuka will come after you. Well, not after you, but he comes to try and revive Alab V. Once he tries to do that, he revives him once. The Zanuka would be nearby, and that Zanuka being nearby, you quickly down Alab V again with a shotgun, preferably, and then you just kill the Zanuka straight away, and that's how you do the boss. That's the quickest way I found. You're gonna see how in all of these bosses preferably use something that has an invincibility mode. Like once you get into Alab V to series, you wanna stick with Rhino. He's one of the best frames in the game when it comes to boss levels. He can take some damage, really trying to figure out how to defeat the boss. As for Raptor, there are 3 different types of vents that you have to destroy to kill Raptor, and the only way to get this explosive to destroy the vents is that you have to destroy the Raptor 3 times, and it drops it. You just press F once you pick it up, drop it in the vent, and you're done.
Here we go.
For Saga's Rook, now he is a little bit more trickier on the side that you have to wait until he opens certain pieces of his chassis, his back, his stomach, or his arm, which he's holding over his head. That lights up once it's open, and then you just have to shoot it. There's nothing more you can do with that. You can go shotgun, you can go assault rifle, whatever you please. Preferably the warframe a Rhino again, so you can take in the damage without having to preoccupy or worry about yourself that you're gonna die anytime soon. As for Tile Rigor, what we have here is he's more of like this ninja kind of fighter. The quickest way to deal with him is Nova. You can use her bomb, you could call it. It's what I look at it like. You can use the bomb either to slow the enemies down, or you can use the bomb to defeat like the ninjas that are gonna come after you once you defeat him once or twice. Tile Rigor isn't that difficult, just need to know how to hit it. The trick here is to use Nova's bomb, shoot at it, and let it blow up against the floor or something. As for the Hyena pack, what I can recommend is using Nova's fourth ability to slow them down. That way they aren't always jumping around in the room, and it's just a lot more simpler to do so as you have enough time to aim, and plus the damage bonus you can get by using Nova's fourth will most likely either one-shot them, like I did with the Tigris, if you mod it correctly of course. As for Pluto, you'll be defeating the Ambulance. Now, the Ambulance isn't one boss, there are multiple bosses of the Ambulance. I would recommend bringing a friend with you, either a Nova or using a Rhino. So either when one is downed, you can pick the other one up. Nova will be used to slow down the enemies and the drones, because once the Ambulance is down, you have to hack the console. And then you've got these like flying drones trying to repair it. Now there, in that situation, you have to destroy those drones, and you can't do that simply based on, well, your damage. You know, you need to crowd control. You need a crowd controlling person, so it facilitates you in defeating the bosses.
Come in, I could sit you by the fire, Listen, there's something I must confide. I know I said that it'd be fine. I know I made it look like it'd be alright, but I think I learned my lesson, and I'm not gonna let you out of my sight. You can call me killer, 'cause I'll bring you to the light, and it might taste bitter when you're answering to God. You can call me killer as you look into.
This is gonna be a little bit more strange. Now I'm using here on Setna, I'm using Valkyrie with the Ignace and a secondary as the twin stubbers. You can use perfectly any other pistol you want, but I just prefer the stubber since it has a high fire rate. Now the Ignace is a basic use of those circles on the wall. When they twist, you can just shoot at them and everything will be hit. You have to hit specific targets. Now the reason why I use Valkyrie is because her second ability can slow down the enemies, slow down the movement of the enemy, and if you use her 4, you can easily dish out a lot of damage. Do know that you have to mod her claws as the frame. Now I'm not so certain if the melee is also involved or not, but it's there, and I would recommend also bringing very good melee to the fight. The only thing you have to do is just keep scratching them. As for the 2 big infestation bosses that we have basically a big charger, which I could very much recommend using a viral build on it. Using a viral build does do increased damage, and it does quite a lot of damage on health only enemies, talking about infested here, so that's why I recommend that. And then once you go ahead and going against Lefantis, now Lefantis here, I would recommend going with Rhino, because those are 3 heads that you have to blow up. Going with the Tigris Prime because it does a lot of damage. It does really do a lot of damage, and it's one of the quickest ways to deal with this boss. Now you can perfectly use any other Tigris, any other shotgun or weapon that you would prefer, or secondary, depends on which gun does the most damage for you. You can't use melee at all for this, and use Rhino simply just because you have a damage buff with his 3rd ability. Now, I do hope this was somewhat useful for everybody. do hope everybody has a good day, and here we end a little bit of the guide on how to defeat these bosses, and a little bit of hints on what to use. Goodbye everybody, and have a good day. See you next time.